Hello, today is the 24th of April 2024. This is Hector Vladimir. I would like to report today on a disturbing development for EV owners, and it is EV charging. Electric vehicle charging has gone up. It is very expensive at the moment. I am talking about the specific part of EV charging which is at the heart of owning and justifying the ownership of an EV, fast charging, sometimes called DC charging. And to my direct experience, it is very expensive, and it basically puts a strain and for many basically nulls and cancels the justification, the very core of the justification of owning and driving an EV, which is the economic or financial justification. If it is too expensive, the logic goes to have an EV as compared to having a regular car, then it is very difficult to justify its purchase, justify owning electric vehicles. For one, they are expensive to own, to have, to acquire, and the large and looming justification to having it is the savings or potential savings in fueling it, in keeping it charged. But disturbingly enough, that has changed. I'm not sure how long it has been changing, but I just recently found out through a recent trip I had that charging rates are disturbingly high for CCS, fast charging, DC charging. And there are various reasons. I would like to speculate in some. Others are quite known. Taxing, like sales tax, is one reason. Wanting to make money or profit making from the owners of those charge stations is another reason. And recently there has been efforts, some of them have been successful, to introduce and place on those, tack on fuel taxes on those fast chargers. So governments and municipalities, states are not happy and are not apparently satisfied with charging EV owners an exuberant amount of money taxes at registration every year, as most states have now here in the United States. But they are now targeting fast charging networks for taxing above and beyond what it should cost to charge at those stations. So once again, I have found out, and perhaps many of you have already found out even before I did, that fast charging could be pricey. It is heavily taxed, and increasingly so has fuel taxes. And again, this targets the very heart of EV ownership, which is again the justification of saving money. Never mind the very big justification of saving the planet, contributing to the environment, contributing to lessening the carbon emissions or the pollution emissions and all these other stuff. But this hits people's pockets, which makes it extremely hard and difficult to justify EV ownership unless you are saving money, especially as compared with gassing up your vehicle. Per my experience, the fees that these EV fast charging networks are charging EV owners range from about 30 cents to all the way to 60 cents per kilowatt hour. Kilowatt hour is basically the unit of energy, of charge, that power companies and other companies dealing with energy use. This is a standard, worldwide standard. And basically I have come up with some basic calculations here to compare a gas-driven vehicle, an average, rather okay, maybe on the better side, miles per gallon vehicle, an efficient vehicle, maybe like a 4-cylinder efficient vehicle, which gets about 48 kilometers per gallon. That is about 30 miles per gallon. And as you may know, right about now gas is pretty pricey. Late April 2024 is about $3.30
per gallon.
Yes, sometimes it may be more than that, maybe slightly less in some areas, but I believe that is quite close to the average. And I have done a bit of calculations here. At 30 miles per gallon or 48 kilometers per gallon, you are expected to pay about 7 cents per kilometer on a 48 kilometer per gallon vehicle. That would be about 11 cents per mile on a 30 mile per gallon vehicle. And with that, I could do a little bit of calculation and see exactly how much it would cost on the equivalent in electric charging fees that they charge. For me to get to that I would have to basically convert the amount of money that it takes to run a kilometer or a mile on electric kilowatts, on electric charge. And I'm going to take about 5 kilometers per kilowatt hour. That is, on a good day, you can get about 5 kilometers per kilowatt hour on an electric vehicle. I have to come to that number through experience. You may want to comment on the comment section if your experience is different, but driving the electric vehicle very normally, not crawling, not attempting to maximize your range, just driving normally as you would a gas-driven vehicle, you would get about 5 kilometers per kilowatt hour. And the equivalent in gas, that would be about 48 kilometers per gallon. Per kilometer, the amount of money you're paying per kilometer on a
48 kilometers per gallon or 38 miles per gallon
vehicle, we're talking about 7 cents. When you convert to the amount of kilometers you get per kilowatt hours, you're talking about
10 cents per kilometer if you pay 50 cents per kilowatt hour.
So we're going from 7 cents on a fuel efficient vehicle, gas fuel efficient vehicle, to having to pay
10 cents
per kilometer on an electric vehicle. That is disturbingly high. That is stomach-churningly high.
Especially when you consider that you often pay 55 or 60 cents per kilowatt.
And going to miles, you're paying about 11 cents per mile on a 30 mile per gallon vehicle, per my basic calculations. What I got for an electric vehicle per kilowatts,
you're paying about 16 cents per mile if you pay 50 cents per kilowatt.
That is vomit-inducingly high compared to 11 cents
per mile.
So this is, my friends, if you're fast charging, of course, these numbers all will change. If you're charging at home overnight, where you're not nearly paying 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents per kilowatt hour, you're paying a fraction of that. So of course, these numbers would not apply. I'm talking about fast charging. When you're out on the road, on the street, on a trip, you're going to want to fast charge in the middle of the day, or if you go to a hotel on a long trip, an overnight hotel or motel that does not have a charger, then you would have to charge either the night before your next part of the trip or the morning after. Spend an hour or two at the charging station, as I did in my recent trip, and spend some good cash. We're talking about over 10, 15, 20, 25, $30, $35 per charging session.
For example, I calculated a kilometer per kilowatt hour using a 5 kilometer per kilowatt hour efficiency, which is quite common, and a 50 cent per kilowatt hour rate, which is also quite common. Then divide the 50 cents by 5, you get 10 cents per kilometer. On the other hand, for gas mileage, you should divide 3.3, which is the current average gallon of gas price. Divide that by 48,
which is the hypothetical vehicle efficiency in kilometers. That would be a 30 mile per gallon vehicle.
And you get the equivalent of about 7 cents per kilometer. Now, taking this information, you can derive what the equivalent would be if you had the same efficiency, and find out what you actually would be paying if you were buying gas while using an electric vehicle. And this equivalent is about $4.80.
$4.80.
I came to this figure by dividing 4.8 or $4.80 by 48, which gives me exactly 10 cents per kilometer, which is what you're paying for your electric vehicle if you pay 50 cents per kilowatt hour. So the equivalent of 50 cents per kilowatt hour is really a whopping $4.80.
$4.80
per gallon of gas.
The maximum I charged about 50 kilowatt hours into my vehicle, and the highest I paid at a whopping 60 cents per kilowatt hour. I paid close to $35, and that basically took away my sleep for a few nights. Again, my friends, this is disturbing, this development, this route that the charging networks are
taking.
Another thing I wanted to bring is that charging networks, many of them have apps that require you to basically put your payment information, and they refill your account card every time it goes low. If it dips below $10, they knock you out and put another $20 charge on it. So basically that puts you back $30 on a charging session that probably cost you maybe about $5. Again, compared with gassing your vehicle with fuel, this is too much, my friends. This is expensive. I know many of us don't take long trips too much, but a lot of us do work out of our electric vehicles, and we have to charge sometimes during the day. Some of us take longer trips and drive longer kilometers or miles in our routes of work. Whether you work out of your vehicle doing any kind of service work, sales, deliveries, or taxis, Uber, Lyft, etc. And again, charging, my friends, is not only increasingly expensive, but it takes time. Time is money, especially if you work out there on the road, moving around, again, driving, working out of your vehicle. So these are a few factors that you may want to consider. Yes, owning an electric vehicle is somewhat superior to owning a gas car given some conditions. Of course, if you're driving an exuberant amount of miles or kilometers per day, then it's going to cost you more, not only in money but in time and effort. So you have to consider your situation, whether you're going to be driving your electric vehicle a whole lot or not so much. If you're going to work and back, if you work at a conventional workplace, brick and mortar location where you're being provided with a method of charging at work, that would be ideal. If you could charge at home every time and not have to charge hardly ever out there, that would be also ideal. But it is hardly the case if you are constantly using your electric vehicle. The last thing I want to leave this audience with is that one thing that justifies and that basically makes it worth having an electric vehicle is by putting miles or kilometers on it. If you're going to have an electric vehicle just to have it parked most of the time and barely break 10,000 miles per year, then basically you're not getting your money's worth from that vehicle. The carbon footprint you have validated by having that vehicle is not justifying it. If you have, again, an electric vehicle, it is very much so a requirement, or at the very least it is desired that you put a good amount of miles on it. I would say above average at least. The more the merrier, for you to get your money's worth. And of course you have to minimize the amount of money that you spend charging. If you could bring it close to zero, then that would be ideal, optimal. And disturbingly enough, with this developments, with the charging networks charging so much, this is becoming very hard to do, especially for, again, people that drive a lot in their electric vehicles. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I made any boo-boos on my calculations. I don't believe I did, but if you do find some, please let me know. Also, if you have calculations of your own, maybe you have different numbers for your situation, your electric vehicle, your experiences. Maybe your experiences charging out there, fast charging. I'm not sure if it's maybe any different here in North America, but it's maybe a lot different in some other parts of the world. Let me know in the comments as well. Thank you very much for listening.